Mystic Christianity, or The Inner Teachings of the Master. An audiobook from William Walker Atkinson. The 12th lesson, The Message of the Master. Running throughout nearly all of the teachings and messages of Jesus is to be found the constant mystic message regarding the existence of the spirit within the soul of each individual, that something within to which all can turn in time of pain and trouble, that guide and monitor which stands ever ready to counsel, advise, and direct if one opens himself to the voice. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all things shall be added unto you. And again, as if to explain, the kingdom of heaven is within you. This is the mystic message which gives one a key to the mysteries of the inner teachings. Let us take up a few of his sayings and endeavor to interpret them by the light of these teachings. But before doing so, we must call the attention of the student to the fact that, in order to understand intelligently what we are saying, he must carefully reread the 14 lessons in Yogi philosophy, wherein the details of the teachings are set forth, that is, the fundamental truths are explained. In the advanced course and in Jnana Yoga, the higher phases of the teachings are presented. And although in the said works there is little or no reference made to Christianity, yet the teachings are so fundamental that the inner teachings of all religions, including Christianity, may be understood by one who has acquainted himself with these fundamental truths. There is but one real occult philosophy, and we find it in evidence everywhere. Once the truth is grasped, it is found to be the master key with which to unlock the various doors leading to the esoteric phase of any and all religions or philosophies. The Yogi Fathers, centuries and centuries ago, solved the riddle of the universe, and the highest efforts of the human mind since that time have but corroborated, proven, and exemplified the original truth as voiced by these venerable sages. Let us read the words of Jesus in the light of this ancient wisdom. Let us consider the Sermon on the Mount as given in Matthew, chapters 5, 6, 7. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. By these words, Jesus indicated the occult teachings that those who renounced the vain glory and petty ambitions of this world would be on the road to the realization of the real self, the something within, the spirit. For is it not written that the kingdom of heaven is within you? Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. By these words, Jesus pointed out the occult teachings that those who had so far advanced that they could see the folly of human ambition, and who consequently felt the pain that comes to all who stand above the crowd, and who mourned by reason of their realization of the folly and uselessness of all for which men strive so hard, would, in the end, be comforted by that peace which passes all understanding, which comes only to those who enter into a realization of the kingdom of heaven which is within them. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. By these words, Jesus sought to teach that those who had acquired the attitude of obedience to the power of the Spirit within them would become as masters of the things of earth. This message is frequently misunderstood by reason of the lack of perception of the mystic meaning contained in the words. The word meek does not mean that I'm so meek and humble attitude and expression of the hypocritical followers of form. Jesus never taught this and never acted it. He was always the master and never sought to make of his followers cringing creatures and whining and sniveling supplicants. He asserted his mastery in many ways and accepted the respect due him, as for instance when the vial of precious ointment was poured upon him. His use of the word, which has been poorly translated as meek, was in the sense of a calm, dignified bearing toward the power of the Spirit and a reverent submission to its guidance, not a hypocritical and cowardly meekness toward other men. The assurance that such should inherit the earth means that they should become masters of things temporal, that is, that they should be able to rise above them, should become lords of the earth by reason of their entering into the kingdom of heaven within them. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. This is the promise of the Master, that they who sought the kingdom of heaven within them should find it, that their spiritual hunger and thirst should be satisfied in the only way possible. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Here is taught the blessing for forbearance, kindness, tolerance, and absence of bigotry, and the reward that comes as a natural consequence of such a mental attitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Here is the assurance that, to those who are pure all things are pure, that the purity of one's own heart and the recognition of the God within leads to a perception of the God within everything. He who sees God within himself sees him in everything, says an old Persian writer. And verily such a one sees God where he abides, and that is everywhere. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Here is the call to the disciple to use his wisdom and power in the direction of remedying the strife that arises from the differing conceptions of deity and truth prevailing among men. He who is able to point out the truth underlying all religions and beliefs indeed becomes as a beloved son of God. He who is able to show that under all forms and ceremonies, under various names and titles, behind various creeds and dogmas, there is but one God, to whom all worship ascends. He is a peacemaker and a son of God. Blessed are they that have been persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall reproach you, and persecute you, and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets that were before you. In these words, Jesus sought to comfort and encourage those who would be called upon to carry the message in the centuries to follow. And one has but to look over the list of names of the courageous souls who have sought to keep the flame alight, to preserve the teachings in their original purity, to protect them from the cant, hypocrisy, self-seeking and formalism of those who sought and obtained places of power in the church. The gibbet, the stake, the dungeon, was their reward, but the faith that was called into manifestation during the persecutions served to bring them to the realization of the Spirit, and thus indeed, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. But ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men. Here Jesus warned against the failure of the illumined to serve as the yeast which should leaven the mass of men by their thoughts and actions. The use of the term salt in this connection is familiar to all students of ancient mysticism. Food without salt was deemed unpalatable and undesirable. The few were the salt of the earth, designed to render it worthy and perfect as a whole. But where a grain of salt had parted with its savor, there was naught else that could impart saltiness to it, and it became worthless and fit only for the refuse heap. The duty of the salt is to impart savor. The duty of the elect is to impart savor to the race of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a lamp and put it under a bushel, but on the stand, and it shineth unto all that are in the house. Even so let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father who is in heaven. These words, like those preceding it, teach the elect to shed abroad the light which has come to them. They are warned against concealing it beneath the cover of conventional conduct, but are urged to live and act so that men may perceive the light that is within them, the light of the Spirit, and may see the right road by means of its rays. A man having the light of the Spirit shining bright within him is able to rouse the lamps of understanding in the minds of other men, to become kindled and alight. That is the experience of the majority of those who read these words. They have had their lamps of knowledge kindled by the rays of the Spirit emanating from some soul, either by word of mouth, writings, or by personal contact. Spirituality is contagious. Therefore spread it. This is the meaning of this passage. Think not that I came to destroy the law of the prophets. I came not to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass away from the law till all things be accomplished. In this passage, Jesus asserted positively the fact that he was not teaching a new doctrine, but had come simply to carry on the work of those who had preceded him. He asserted the validity of the ancient wisdom, and told that the law that had been in force would so continue until heaven and earth should pass away, that is, until the end of this great world cycle. In these words, Jesus proclaimed his allegiance to the occult teachings. To those who would claim that he referred to the current Jewish teachings, we would point out the fact that these he did come to destroy, for Christianity is opposed to the Jewish formalism and outer teachings. Jesus referred to the inner teachings, not to the outer religious creeds or forms. He came not to destroy the old teachings, but merely to fulfill, that is, to give a new impetus to the ancient wisdom. Whoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven. Here Jesus cautions against violating the fundamental occult teachings, or of teaching false doctrines. He also again bids men to do and preach the truth. Note the reference to the kingdom of heaven. Again he points out that the righteousness required to gain the kingdom of heaven is a far different thing from the formalism, ceremonialism, and churchism of the scribes and Pharisees, people who, in that day, stood for that which the churchy preachers and their bigoted, narrow flock of sheep-like parishioners stand for today. It requires more than faithful performance of church duties to enter into the real kingdom of heaven. Jesus was ever a foe of the narrow formalism which clings close to the empty forms and words, and which ignores the Spirit. Were he to return today, he would drive from the temples the horde of money-making preachers and hypocritical followers who make a mock of sacred things. Ye have heard that it was said to them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that every one who is angry with his brother shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother Raka shall be in danger of the council. And whosoever shall say Thou fool shall be in danger of the hell of fire. If therefore thou art offering thy gift at the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Agree with thine adversary quickly, while thou art with him, lest haply thine adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the last farthing. These verses emphasize the teachings that sin consists not only of deeds and actions performed, but equally of thoughts and desires entertained and encouraged in the mind. The desire and thought, made welcome in the mind of a person, is the seed and germ of the sin or crime, even though they may never be manifested in action. To wish to kill is a sin, just as is the deed of killing. This is an old occult teaching, imparted to all candidates for initiation. You have heard that it was said, You shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. It has been said, Anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. In this passage, Jesus expressed the abhorrence of all advanced occultists for the abuse of the functions of sex. Not only the act, but the thought behind the act was condemned by him. The advanced occult teaching is that the function of the sex organization is entirely that of procreation. Aught else is a perversion of nature. Jesus speaks in strong words to men and women in this passage regarding this great question. The concluding portion of the passage is a condemnation of the abuse of the marriage relation and the privilege of divorce, which was being strongly agitated in his time. He aimed a blow at the careless contracting of marriages and the consequent careless dissolution of the tie. Jesus believed in the sacredness of the home life and the welfare of the family. His utterance on this subject is unmistakably clear and forcible. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, Do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Here Jesus attacks the custom of swearing, which was so prevalent in his time among the Jews and other Oriental peoples. He urges simplicity and moderation of speech. In this, he is true to the occult traditions, which teach the value of simple thought and simple speech to all the initiates and the neophytes. In this passage, Jesus alludes to the law of non-resistance, which in its esoteric aspect is fully understood by all initiates. This law is for application on the mental plane, and those who understand it know that the precepts refer to the mental attitude of the initiates toward others, which attitude is in itself a defense against imposition. Love turns away hate and anger. The high thought neutralizes the evil designs of others. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Here is taught that broad tolerance, charity, and love that form such an important part of all of the mystic teachings. It is a doctrine entirely at variance with the orthodox idea of tolerance only to those who agree with one, or who may live in accordance with one's own views of life and conduct. It is the great broad doctrine of human brotherhood. Jesus teaches that God's love is bestowed upon all, the just and the unjust, and that this perfect love is the aim and goal of all who desire to attain to the kingdom of spirit. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. This is another denunciation of ostentatious churchiness and goodness and religious posing. It is a lesson needed as much today as in the time of Jesus. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. This, then, is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. Here are the words of Jesus regarding the subject of prayer. He cautions against the ostentatious exhibition of piety so prevalent in all churches, in all lands, in all times. He bids one approach the Father in a reverent spirit, devoid of all public notice. Then he gives to his disciples the famous Lord's Prayer, in which is condensed a wealth of true religious instruction and precept. This glorious prayer needs no special interpretation. Let all students read the words themselves, filled with the realization of the Spirit, and each will receive a message fitted to his requirements and development. The Lord's Prayer is a very arcanum of the mystic message. Furthermore, when you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father, who is unseen. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. This is a caution against the sanctimonious attitude and pose assumed by certain good people of the churches who would make a display of their adherence to and observance of forms. Jesus, as a true mystic, detested all religious posing and neglected no opportunities to condemn the same. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. This is the most remarkable passage in the New Testament. It is the most remarkable saying of Jesus of Nazareth. In it is condensed the whole of the occult teachings regarding the conduct of life. It condenses, in a few lines, the entire doctrine of karma yoga, that branch of the yogi philosophy. It forms a veritable epitome of that which has been styled the new thought, as taught and expounded by its various cults and schools. There is no need of one reading and studying the various metaphysical sciences which have sprung into such favor of late years, if one will but read, ponder, study, and practice the precepts of this wonderful passage of the Sermon on the Mount. Every sentence is a gem, a crystal of the highest mystic and occult philosophy. Book after book could be written on this one passage, and even then the subject would be but merely approached. The doctrine of single-mindedness toward the Spirit and the things of the Spirit is taught. The folly of being tied to material things is pointed out. The lesson of non-attachment is forcibly put. But the great truth expounded in this passage is the power of faith. Faith is the great secret of all occult teachings and is the key to its inner mysteries. Faith is the master key that unlocks the doors of the castle of attainment. We trust that all students of these lessons will take this single passage from the Sermon on the Mount and memorize it. Make it a part of yourself, make it a part of your life, make it your rule of action and living. The life taught by this passage is the true life of the Spirit. Here is the true light on the path, for the guidance of the feet of all mystics and occultists. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Here Jesus deals another powerful blow to the self-righteousness of the Pharisaical good people of the sects, creeds, and cults of all lands, time, and religions. He warns against that, thank God, I am holier than thou attitude that so many vain formalists affect in their dealings with other men. In these immortal words Jesus has sent ringing down the eons of time a scathing rebuke to the hypocritical judges of other men, those men who wish to reform others to conform to their own standards. Out of the mouth of their master are many so-called followers rebuked. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Here is the warning to initiates not to spread out a feast of their highest teachings to the mob, who with swinish instincts would defile the divine feast and tear to pieces those who had spread it for them. The truth of this warning has been attested by the fate of those glorious souls who, disregarding it, attempted to give the truth to the animal minds of the mob and were done to death for their folly. Even Jesus himself met his fate from neglecting this very rule, for allowing his sympathy to overcome his judgment. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you, then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Here is another burning message to men to live by the light of faith in the Spirit, and a warning that unless one would act toward other men rightly, he could not expect to be dealt with rightly. It is the lesson of sowing and reaping, the lesson of the law of karma. Jesus is most emphatic in these statements. He does not alone say, do this, do that. He states emphatically, this is the law. And so it is, men are punished by their wrong deeds, not for them. Go through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. This is the highest occult teaching. How few are they who find their way to the realization of their own divinity. Narrow indeed is the gate, and straiten the way that leads to the goal. The masses follow the broad path, like fools, but few even see the narrow entrance to the path. Beware of false prophets, who come to you in sheep's clothing but inwardly are ravenous wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit you will recognize them. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Here is the notable warning against the perverted use of the occult powers, the prostitution of the gifts of the Spirit, black magic, in short. For, as all well know, the occult forces may be applied to base as well as worthy uses. By their fruits shall ye know the good from the evil. He whose teachings render men weak, sheep-like and cringing, credulous leaners upon leaders, is a tree that bringeth forth evil fruit. Such are wolves in sheep's clothing, who fatten upon the bodies, substance, and souls of their dupes. But those who lead men to be men, supermen, bring forth the good fruit of the Spirit. Be ye not deceived by names, words, creeds, nor claims, nay, not even by miracles. Look always at the effect produced, the fruits of the tree, and govern yourself accordingly. Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. In these parting words of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gave a message to all who would hear, or read his words, and professed to be his followers. He bade such build upon the eternal rock of the truth, the rock of ages, that had its foundations in the very basic principles of being. He warned them against building upon the shifting sands of theology and dogmatism, which would be surely swept away by the storms of time. Upon the eternal mystic truths is mystic Christianity founded, and it is still standing untouched by the storms of criticism, opposition, and knowledge that have swept away many theological edifices in the past, and which are now beating with renewed vigor upon the remaining frail structures, which are even this day quivering under the strain. Mystic Christianity invites the new theology, the higher criticism, the criticism of science, for these will only tend to prove the truths of its fundamental principles. In mystic Christianity, religion, philosophy, and science are known to be one and the same thing. There is no conflict between science and religion, philosophy and religion, or philosophy and science. They are all but names for the one truth. There be but one truth. There cannot be more than one. And so call it by the name of religion, the name of science, the name of philosophy, it matters not, for the same thing is meant. There is naught but truth. Nothing else really exists. All that is not truth is illusion, Maya, nothing. And mystic Christianity is based upon the rock of truth, fearing not the winds nor the storms that try out the stability of all structures of thought. Like its founder, it has always existed, always will exist, from the beginningless beginning to the endless ending. The same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. End of lesson. End of book.